Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make a chicken cordon bleu casserole. So everything you see on my counter is what we're going to use to make this casserole, and there's quite a bit going on here because you have chicken and ham and so many other things. But I gotta tell you, this is something that has such a great taste, and it turns out to be quite a lot of food because this is going to go in a baking dish that's like 9.5 by 13.5, so you're going to have quite a lot to feed quite a few people. So we're going to start off with 4 medium chicken breasts. We're going to cut the fat off of that, and then we're going to slice across this to just make thin slices that are going to go into the casserole. We don't want them huge, but we do want them to be cut into decently thin slices to use in this. So if you like really large pieces of chicken, that's perfectly fine. You can cut it however you want. As you can see with mine, I just cut it down to where these things are just, really not even that big at all, like a couple inches, and they're thin. So we're going to go ahead and cut through all 4 of these chicken breasts and get them all cut up. And then when it's done, we're going to cut through some ham. Now you can use deli ham or whatever. I took this from a spiral ham that I had, and basically we're going to cut this up into little pieces that's going to go in here. But what we're going to use is about a half a pound of ham. So if you're using deli slices and it says half a pound, that's fine. Now if you see that I'm cutting stuff off of mine, it's literally just the edge on the outer part of the ham, and really don't want that going in here because it's kind of hard and we don't want to use it. So I'm just discarding that. But otherwise, as you can see, I'm just cutting this into slices so that way it can be layered into my pan as I'm going along to build up this casserole. Once it's all cut up, we're going to put it back on the plate, sit it to the side, and we're going to work on the next part of doing this. So go ahead and put this away for now until we come back to it. And in a large skillet over medium-high heat, we're going to put some nonstick cooking spray, and we're going to bring in that sliced up chicken. Now, we are not trying to put a lot of oil in this pan because we're not frying this chicken. We're just trying to cook it and get it done and tender so it can be used in the casserole. We're not trying to go for like hard edges or making it golden brown or anything else on the edge of that. We're just trying to cook it until it's done. And as you cook this and it starts to get to a point where it's done, you will notice that, like, I'm going to use my spatula. I can literally push through this. It's that tender and that easy to deal with. So it's going to take a few minutes to cook. You want to make sure you get rid of all that pink. So along the way, go ahead and flip this, turn it, but keep it over medium-high heat and cook it until it is done. If you notice it's getting a little brown, turn your temperature down a little bit. We don't want it going brown on this. But we're going to cook all the way through this until we feel that it's ready to be used. So go ahead and flip it around, but don't let it sit too long in place. Now, as you can see with mine, I'm cutting right through it. This stuff is cooked up really well. Now, I'm going to give it a few more minutes just to make sure there's no pink in this. But as you can see, after this part, it's tender, it's good, it's ready to be used. So we just want to go ahead and mix it up a little bit, make it move around, make sure that nothing sits in one place too long, but we're not actually leaving any of the pink stuff on top. So, and once this is done, we're going to actually end up removing this from the pan, but we're going to let it cool down a little bit. So I have a 9.5 by 13.5 baking dish. I'm spraying with non-stick cooking spray because we want to make sure the stuff doesn't set up shop in here. And we're going to bring that chicken over and layer it across the bottom of the pan. And just go ahead and use it all, but do an even layer all the way across the bottom. And as it's sitting there, it's going to cool down some more. It should be cool before it gets in here because we are going to add other things on top of it, like ham and all that stuff, but we don't want it heating up the whole pan before we're ready to cook this. So go ahead, add it all in. And then once it's done, we're going to bring in the ham that we cut up and just spread it across the top of this. Because this way, this is like we're building a chicken cordon bleu. You got your chicken, you got your ham, and we're going to add cheese in a minute, and then we're going to make a sauce to pour over top of that, and then we're going to put some breadcrumbs on top of this. So there's really a lot going on, but it's wicked tasting. This is such a good thing to have. So once this is done like this, you're going to need Swiss cheese. Now I went for slices just because it was easier to use them, and it's one of these things where I use 10 slices of the cheese. So if you were putting this in here, you'd probably need about a half a pound of Swiss cheese to cover that. And then we're going to set it to the side, go to our skillet, add 4 tablespoons of butter to it and start melting it. And we want to get this melted down a bit before we add anything else to it. And as it's starting to melt, we are going to add in at least a tablespoon of minced garlic. And we're going to move this around for about 30 seconds before we add anything else to it, because we want to make sure that this is a little cooked but not overcooked before we start doing more too. So go ahead and mix this through a little bit. Make sure your butter is melted, and then we're going to add in some other things to this. Now, once your temperature goes really up on this and everything is melted, we're going to add in a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. And then after that, we're going to add some spices. We have 1.5 teaspoons of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, and a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And we're mixing that in, and then we're bringing in 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. We're going to mix this together, and we just want it to cook to a point where it's completely like not tasting like flour. So that's going to be like at least 2 minutes. And then we're going to bring in 3 cups of milk. And we're going to add a little at a time to break this up. And as I'm breaking this up, I'm just going to start with my spatula, then I'm going to move to a slotted spoon, which is going to help break it up really well. But this helps to do this along the way. So go ahead and do this as you're breaking up. And then once you get to a point where you feel like you need to switch, go to a slotted spoon like I did. And as we're doing this, we're trying to get this to break up 1 and 2 go thick. So once all 3 cups of that milk is in there, we're trying to actually make this into a sauce that we're going to pour over what we already had going on in the pan. So we're going to preheat our ovens right now to 350 degrees because this is going to cook for 45 minutes when this is done and assembled. So now's a good time to actually get your oven heating up. And as you can see, my sauce here is totally blended together and it's ready to be used. Now this is going to get poured over what's already in our dish that's waiting to go in the oven. So it's going to go right on top of the cheese and the ham and the chicken. We're just going to pour it right over top of it. So make sure that it's all like thickened up and ready to go. And then we're literally just going to take the pan and pour it right over top. Now it's good to see that it's bubbling before you pour it, just to make sure that this stuff has heated up as much as it's going to. But as you can see here, I'm pouring it right over top. And once it's already poured in there, you want to take a spoon and just kind of like move it around a little bit, send it to the sides, make sure this goes over the whole top of what's already in here for our casserole. Now we're going to mix up a topping for this in just a second. So we're going to need a couple items for that. And really making the topping is just as easy as anything. So you're going to need to melt 4 tablespoons of butter, get them ready to go. Then we have 1 1/4 cups of seasoned breadcrumbs, 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and then we're going to pour that butter in there and we're going to mix it up with a spatula or whatever and keep mixing it because it's going to actually be a dry mix, but the butter is going to blend together the cheese and the breadcrumbs. So go ahead and mix them around until you feel they're totally incorporated together, and then we're going to take and spread this over top of the whole casserole. So as you can see, this dries out as you're doing it. It's really easy to work with. And you can put this on with your fingers, it's no big deal, and just sprinkle it all over top of there. Now, mind you, you need your oven at 350 degrees. This is going to go on for 45 minutes. And then it's going to bake up, and that's going to give time for the breadcrumbs on top to actually do a little bit of browning. It's going to give time for the cheese to melt. It's going to heat up your chicken and your ham and everything else with the sauce that's already in here. So this is pretty much done. Once we put it in the oven, it will come back. Now the top of this is not going to be overly brown. We don't want it overly brown because that's going to give it a taste. However, it'll come back looking a lot like this. And I suggest letting this cool for about like 10-15 minutes before you cut into it because it'll thicken up and it'll be easier to deal with. But once it does thicken up, this is what it looks like and you put it on your plate. And I got to tell you, this has such a great taste and I think you're going to like this one. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, check out the cookbooks available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and if you'd like to, you could order a cookbook at a discounted price, cheaper than Amazon, with shipping that is also cheaper than Amazon. So if you get a chance, check it out, and I hope you have a great day.